Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. Today we are checking out our follow-up for the Shattered Concepts Shattered, both Trainer and Live Blade. Before this video begins, I do want to thank Shattered for including me in the pass round. This is not mine to keep. I'm simply able to spend a little bit of time with it, and then it will be sent on to the next person. One thing I love is that I don't have to tell you the specs and take up a ton of time. You can pause the video and read this right here if you want to see the specs, the most important of which include 7075 channel aluminum with bushings at 3.7 ounces. I've spent about a week with this thing now. Rest in peace to that title format for these videos, but this thing is very good in a lot of ways. I really enjoy it in a lot of ways, and it has disappointed me in one specific way, but one that I can't really say is actually a disappointment, and I'll explain a little bit of that later. The Shattered Trainer, we'll talk about the Live Blade in just a second here, is one of my favorite battle songs that I have tried in recent memory. Genuinely. It has been so much fun to flip and break out, bust a move on, because it reminds me a lot, as I said in the unboxing video, of the Machine-Wise old long stuff. This is about the same length as a Prisma Pro. In fact, it's even a little bit longer, never mind, it's about the exact same size as a Prisma Pro. I compared it to something last video that I think it was a little longer than. I don't remember what it was. But this thing has truly been super fun. It's long and it's balanced well, meaning that choker fans feel nice. The blade and the handles carry enough momentum despite there not being any metal or steel pins here. Pivots or screws or whatever makers usually use to give more momentum to the end of the handles. I find that it still carries enough. The blade, even though it looks like it might not, still is balanced well with the handles, meaning that it feels like they carry a lot of momentum. Fans work well. Choker fans are very fun to pull off because of all of the momentum pulling the blade and the handles apart from each other like that, while still not disrupting chaplains and rollovers too much. There is a little bit of instability with chaplains, but if you just kind of adjust the speed at which you do your chaplains, you won't have too much of a problem. My biggest problem, as was the case in the unboxing video, really is the comfort. Specifically on this part that I pointed out earlier, there is a lot of grabbiness on this channel part right here. You can actually see as I run my hand over it, it's picking up a little bit of debris from my fingers. And it just doesn't feel the best. Also, when you chaplain it, you're going right on where the channel relief is. The channel relief is a little bit sharp as well, meaning if you chaplain it just right, you can kind of feel it digging into your finger there. It's not a huge deal. I wouldn't call it like unreasonably sharp by any means, but it's sharp enough to just be noticeable. Let's just say that. Definitely something that you notice when you flip this thing. And actually that was something that Shattered had messaged me about and left a comment about in the last video, saying that he was working with the manufacturers to maybe get that a little bit smoother there. The Shattered Trainer coming in at $240 is where my slight disappointment comes. Not because I think that that's a bad price. We're talking about Kraken Trainer pricing right there. And while I do find the Kraken Trainer is still my consistency king for this price point, I think if you're looking for something a little bit longer and a little bit more fun, the Shattered is going to be a very appealing option to those of you looking in this price range. And while I ultimately do prefer the consistency of the Kraken Trainer a tiny bit more for improvement or for actually learning tricks, when I want to flip just to have fun, I would absolutely be reaching for a Shattered Trainer. Now the price. Why am I disappointed with the price? Originally, I had thought, again, this is not me being upset that it costs that much. I think it costing about as much as a Kraken Trainer is fine. It's not incredible, amazing value, but it's not bad in any means. It is perfectly within reason, if you ask me. The reason it disappoints me is because I had gone into the first video not knowing the price a ton, but thinking that it was in the $180 to $200 range, which meant, as a lot of you have probably guessed, I have been looking at this as my replacement for the Prisma Pro. I've long since been looking for a balisong that matches the price to performance of the Prisma Pro in the $150 to $200 price range that I can recommend to everyone, like I did with the Prisma Pro. The Prisma Pro was, hands down, my favorite balisong from that price range because it just offered so much. And now it is gone. So I've been looking for something that kind of replaces that. And for a while it's been the Barracuda, or maybe the Wing, or maybe the Thomas Baikal. It's kind of been jumping around. But I had for some reason thought that this fell right in that old Prisma Pro price range, and I was ready to give it the new crown. I really was. Unfortunately, that's where the slight disappointment comes in from, because this is a $240 balisong, which pushes it up to around like the Sasori, or like I said, the Kraken Trainer or something like that, meaning that it's not exactly in that Prisma Pro price range. Again, that is something that is completely my fault. This is not the fault of Shattered or the fault of an overpriced product or anything like that, but I just wanted to be transparent in where a slight disappointment had come in for me. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, I think the price is fine. You're getting what you pay for here. It's a well-flipping 70-75 channel trainer that competes well with other things in its price point, like the Kraken Trainer, although in the case of the Kraken Trainer, not beating it if you're looking for that standard, I'm going to get better with this balisong kind of balance or consistency. All right, take two, and you'll notice that there is now a Band-Aid on my finger. Thank you, Live Blades. Let's move on to the Shattered Live Blade, coming in at $280, which is a little bit more than I think we're typically used to for a Live Blade upgrade. Or maybe I'm just thinking of the false Live Blades. Either way, this puts it almost directly on par with the Live Blade Kraken, so this thing is pretty heavily competing with both the Live Blade and the trainer version of the Kraken. I don't think that's an unfair price either. Again, you get what you pay for. But I think it would be nice, if possible, to see it undercut the Kraken a little bit. Again, not a big deal. Just something that I think would help it. Obviously, becoming cheaper would help anything. But this also shows why you really can't make a video expressing your long-term opinions the same video that you unbox something, because I said in the original unboxing that this felt almost exactly the same to the trainer, and literally 5 minutes of flipping it off camera when I'm not trying to film a video showed me that this in fact is fairly different from the trainer blade. This, from everything that I can gather, considering that these are the same handles, the blade is doing a lot more work here. The blade is either heavier or it's carrying momentum, or both. We are losing a little bit of stability on chaplains. Again, if you just slow your chaplains down a little bit, it's not a big deal, but you can definitely feel that it does want to fly a little bit more the faster that you go. Same thing with 0Gs. It wants to fly a little bit more than the trainer does. Not a ton, mind you, but a bit. This also is going to improve the fanning performance. I think this thing, while I actually don't enjoy fanning it as much, the fans and the choker fans carry themselves so much more than it does on the trainer. It just provides it with a much more, I would say, neutral experience compared to the ever so slight handle bias or basic neutrality of the trainer. You're just pushing, oh boy, I almost caught that wrong. You're just pushing the trainer a little, or you're pushing the weight and the balance point a little bit closer to the blade with this one. And it's not a bad experience by any means, but I do find myself preferring the trainer over the Live Blade. And not just because I don't usually prefer flipping Live Blades. This is still a very competent Live Blade, but if I had to buy one, would definitely be picking up the trainer. Even though I think the design of the Live Blade is much better. I love the way that it looks with these handles much more than I love the trainer blade. but ultimately that little bit of extra handle bias does go into making me enjoy the trainer a little bit more, even if the fanning performance over here is maybe a little bit better just because of how much more it carries momentum. Comparing them finally to something like the Prisma Pro, it is the Prisma Pro's slightly less handle bias cousin. Because they chose not to do the weights in the end of the handles, it doesn't carry as much momentum, and it doesn't feel as handle biased as the Prisma Pro did. It almost feels to me, take this with a grain of salt, like the Prisma V2. The Prisma V2 was the predecessor to the Prisma Pro. It was almost exactly as the Prisma Pro it appears. It was for like 1 or 2 or 3 drops where they made these shaped handles out of 6061 aluminum, which meant that the handles were a tiny bit lighter, so it was a tiny bit less handle bias. And that's kind of what this is reminding me of. I think, thinking back to the Prisma V2 when I had time with it, I think I ultimately do prefer the Prisma V2, but again, it's been a while since I've tried one. And for right now, the Shattered, for what it's worth, is absolutely a recommendation in my book, especially if he can figure out the sharpness issue on some of the cuts here. Because the more that I flip it over the course of this week, the more that my hands kind of don't feel the best. Again, not a huge issue, but just something that kind of wears on you over time. So if he manages to fix that, this would be an easy recommendation for me. And I look forward to hopefully seeing him produce some more consistent drops. I mean, it's weird that we went from a time in the community where drops were super consistent to now we're going back to like inconsistent drops that you have to keep an eye on things for. It would be nice to see more people get some more drops out. But yeah, I like the Shattered a lot. Huge thank you to Shattered for sending this thing over via the pass around. I'll be sending it out probably later today or tomorrow to the next person. So keep an eye on your Instagram feeds or whoever you follow to see who might get it next. And thank you all very much for watching. I will see you all in the next one. Later.